When we moved here, honestly, it was really just about like the ability to. It was a bit of a celebration about the fact that we could. I had just ended a 21-year career with Progressive Insurance in their claims department, where I climbed the ladder from low-level $25,000 a year employee as a claims adjuster in Elmira, New York, which is nowhere, by way of Boston and then Michigan, to top executive within the company, making $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year, depending on how the stock performed. I had equity. I had a big income. I had the corner office. We had a beautiful home in the suburban town in Michigan. Stay-at-home wife, 2 young boys, the life, right? I think many of you can resonate with the idea that you reach a point in your life where it's no longer about the money or the job, and you just are seeking more fulfillment to end the numbness that is getting up every day to go work in corporate America for many of us. Well, I did that. It started slow, bought a little bit of real estate, it cash flowed a little bit. Honestly, a little bit, not a lot. Maybe $4,000, maybe a month. And that was if it was a good month and I actually took money out of the properties. But I found podcasting, and I started this podcast called Tribe of Millionaires. And I interviewed really interesting people. To this day, I have a few billionaires in my phone simply because of that podcast. Honestly, like for those of you that wonder about podcasting, like it's not about audience. We had at one point 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 views and listens per month. Awesome, right? But more than that, podcasting for me was about the relationships you formed. I told you, we're just going for a ride here. You have to bear with a little bit of my ramblings. That podcast allowed me to partner with an organization that I was a part of called GoBundance. Now, GoBundance, when I got my day job, was this thing I had heard about on all these other podcasts, this sort of like men's membership group, almost like a country club for entrepreneurs. And I dropped $10,000 to $12,000 a year on membership, just like many more foolish people would drop on golf at a country club. I said you might unsubscribe. I didn't say you wouldn't. At least laugh with me. I hate golf. If you get to know me, I hate golf. But as a member of that community and really starting to grow my portfolio of real estate and understand what it would take to go from employed to entrepreneur by just being around the right people, the founders of that community said, hey, look, gotta have $1 million net worth to be a part of it, but we wanna build something for people that aren't yet at $1 million net worth. Do you wanna partner with us and build it? And I said, yeah. So between my real estate and then this community called GoBundance emerge, all of a sudden I had income from the real estate a little bit, not enough to cover my monthly expenses. And I had this business that I thought I could really dive into and make something of that had an impact on other people. And the podcast could market it. And it works. To this day, it works. So when I quit in 2021 and I gave back nearly $1 million of restricted stock to my company that had not yet vested, a year later when we made the decision to move to Dominican Republic, it was simply that. We manifested this. We did this. We don't have to be in any one place. So why are we sticking in one place? Rent the house out in Michigan, go away for a year, we'll be back. That was the plan. But here's what happened in that year, if I'm being raw, honest, and really truthful with you. We found a society that aligned with our values. Let me explain. I grew up Catholic. If you grow up Catholic in the United States, it means this. For 85% of Catholics, I believe this wholly, or I believe this totally. You're dragged to church every Sunday. You go through these sacraments, communion, first penance, confirmation. And after confirmation, you're sort of considered an adult by the church, or at least your parents consider you an adult in terms of your church decisions. And then they cross their fingers and hope that you'll just continue to go back to church because you love it so much. But you don't. Maybe when you come home to see your parents, you go with them for Christmas or Easter, because it means more to them that you go with them than it does to you. That's me, not a practicing person with religion, but grew up in a Christian Catholic household. Our kids went to school for a year here in the Dominican Republic, and we had a chance to sort of get away and get a sense of the United States from another perspective. And what we came away with as a family, my wife being Dominican, grew up until the age of 12 in Higüey and Bani, moved to Chelsea and then Lynn, Massachusetts at 12, and really grew up American, but still with Dominican roots. We found a culture here that is not perfect. Far from it. But a culture nonetheless that really aligned with some things that we started to feel very strongly about. Things being taught in school in the United States, critical race theory, the sort of queer agenda, gender studies, LGBTQ, transgender ideology or tolerance, if you will, all of that being taught in schools. The types of books that we were seeing distributed through libraries and even some of the most conservative districts. The normalizing of sexualized behavior in the public school system that didn't align with us. Here in the Dominican Republic, our kids pray every morning. Our kids sing the national anthem of the country. I don't know that that's still done in the United States. That's not really a big reason for us to stay here, but just a thought. I don't have to worry about the conversations that my kids are having about things that I don't want them to. When I look at the book written recently by the person who's in charge of the teachers union for the entire United States, a book, I can't remember the name of it right now, but whose values espoused do not align with mine. And to think that that person is in charge of the union for all the people influencing my children, it doesn't work for me. I also found a culture where political discourse was still allowed. And I think the root of that is because people still connect with people. You can disagree with the point and not argue the person's validity. And certainly, in light of what we know of what happened recently with Chrlie Kirk, no one deserved to die for their thoughts. So these values, Christian conservative ideals, that's one controversial reason why we align more with living in the Dominican Republic than we do the United States. But now let's get to politics. I'm still learning the body politic, if you will, of the Dominican Republic, how it operates. And for me, and maybe many of you, in fact, I'd like to know what you think here, but you can't help but dissect how politics are organized in another place without considering how they're organized in the United States. The US is very much left-right. And in recent years, maybe the last 20, left-right went from maybe ideology and maybe even right-wrong. And it's flipped to you are good or you are bad, depending on which side of the aisle you sit on. In the Dominican Republic, there are a few different parties. If you try to overlay like, who's the left, who would be like the Democrat Party in the Dominican Republic and who would be like the Republican Party, you'd really struggle. And here's why. The population here aligns around conservative Christian values, something that is badly missing right now in the United States. And when I mean missing, I don't mean that there's not, of course, a large Christian population, people that really embody those values, but the people are not aligned around it. I think we can all agree on that, right? If you look at what's happened in the United States, there's not a lot of common ground that you see between people of different ideological, political mindsets. In Dominican Republic, I make the joke that everything here is si Dios quiere, like if God allows it. And as an American, I'm like, no, God allows it. You'll be there at 2 o'clock tomorrow because God will allow it. But I've learned from many of you, and from my wife for that matter, what the heart and the root of si Dios quiere means here. And that just means like, hey, look, at the end of the day, or maybe at the beginning of the day, we as a people believe one thing in total. Whether you're the most corrupt politician, the most benevolent pastor, or the lowest end of the economic ladder in the country, our fate and our future, we surrender to God. That's the core essence of Dominican culture, the people. So the reason it's difficult to go left-right here is because that's just not how it works. Different political parties have different ideas for how they want to run the government, but ideology, principles, values, those are very much aligned at their core across the population. Political debate happens. Some people are very passionate that Abinader's a terrible president. Some people feel he's the best thing that's happened to the country. Others align with past regimes or maybe a future person that's up and coming, that's going to right-size the country or do it the right way. I get it. Of course that exists here. But here's where we get to maybe the most controversial reason and where you may want to unsubscribe depending on who you are. And we're going to talk about Chrlie Kirk. As I record this, we're a week and a half out. Actually, yesterday, I believe, was the funeral where his wife went on stage and spoke about forgiving the young man, Tyler Robinson, that shot him. There's a lot of different reaction to it. It's fine. But I've spent the last few days talking to people here, from people like my housekeeper, who are what many would consider to be, on the lower end of the socioeconomic, maybe even educational spectrum, through middle class or more successful Dominicans, lifers who have never been anywhere but here. Even those that live in big houses worth $1 million, they've built businesses and lives here. Maybe they have a legacy family that left it to them. And also the expat or international community that's here. Talk to all of them. Most are aware, but those like my housekeeper have no idea who Chrlie Kirk was or what it was about or any of this stuff. And I simply said to her, oh, he was a guy, very conservative. He had strong beliefs. I didn't say what his beliefs were. And a man killed him by shooting him in the neck. And she jumped like, oh, come on. I said, yeah. And I think mucho personas, I think I said, my Spanish. A lot of people are saying, good, he's dead. And when I said good, to see her visceral reaction, and others like her who had no idea who Chrlie Kirk was or what this was all about, that was a deep-rooted value system that I align with 100%, viscerally emerging out of an amazing human being or amazing human beings. I did a video a week ago in the wake of Chrlie Kirk. It was raw, unedited. I put it out there, and I look back at that video and I feel like, Jamie, you did a pretty good job. But I'll admit, I was trying to find the middle in that video, trying to acknowledge, hey, hate exists across the spectrum, and it does. I'm not acknowledging that. But in that time, since that video was released, there's been a lot of discourse. There's been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of response to that video and many, many others. others, to friends of mine that I respect that feel many different ways across this political spectrum. And I've realized something. First and foremost, I look at content creation, I look at this thing I'm doing on YouTube or Instagram, I don't look at it as making videos. I look at it as building a community. And because I live in the Dominican Republic and have had the benefit of being in this community, in this culture, community takes on a tone or an energy of being an in-person, face-to-face community. So for me, when people are consuming my content and they're responding and making comments, you might notice I try to reply to all. I really do. Because I look at it as if all of you just came into my home as my guest, and I want to be the best possible host I can be. But for some, if you came into my home in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder, and obviously if you justified it outwardly, good, I'm glad. You don't belong in my home. But I've even gotten to a point where I think the US society, which is where most of you are, most of the people that follow my content, that are in my community, are in the United States, and I am an American at heart. I think that there needs to be a societal cleanse of the type of mindset that can even see why it's somewhat in any way justifiable for Charlie Kirk to be murdered for his thoughts. To me, it's abhorrent. It's terrible. It's disgusting. Even something like,
yeah, I mean, he doesn't deserve to be murdered, but I could see, hey.
Like, no, I can't. And I wouldn't want you in my home. And you wouldn't want me in yours. Let's be honest. I come to you in your living rooms 2-3 times a week sometimes to deliver some value, I hope, to you in your life, whether it be entertaining, educational, or some combination of the two. But as the guy kind of leading this community, I think it's appropriate at times to purge, but also to invite in others who have maybe been wondering if they should go to that house party. I went through this thought experiment if Charlie Kirk were Dominican. If all of what he was a Dominican activist, Dominican influencer. And I worked through a few different things, and I learned and came away with a few things that I think are absolute. The Dominican population would not tolerate somebody taking the life of a father and a husband over his views. 58 Congresspeople would not reject a resolution which was condemning political violence in Charlie Kirk's name and anybody's name. It wouldn't be acceptable. As a society, there would be shame thrust upon those senators or congresspeople, rightfully so. You don't have to agree with Charlie Kirk. You don't have to love that his name is the one being used to condemn political violence. You don't have to be about any of that, but you condemn it. And I believe I live in a society that would. You would not have social media acting the way it is in the United States, these evil, cackling voices laughing about his death, talking about how much blood came out. I mean, you can't go very far without seeing this stuff. Before somebody gets into it, I don't care which side you're on. It's not a right-left thing. That's you. That's America. That's where I sold my home. Where I bought my home looks at it as right and wrong. They look at it as we are a people, they are a government. And what we could all agree on is we all have inherent value as human beings, and we don't love government. I can get down with that. But certainly, a population is not shouting at each other from the other side, questioning their right to exist, or celebrating the death of somebody because they didn't agree with you. Here's case in point. It's a guy named Starlin. In the last election, I think it was 2023, presidential election here in DR, some comedian TikToker dude who goes out and makes an open threat to Luis Abinader. I always say his name wrong. Abinader. Anyway, makes an open threat to him on social media, and he was very quickly arrested and prosecuted. And if you go back and look at the reaction of people, some wonder, wow, was it an overreaction by the state? I get that. You should always question government. But no one was like, yeah, he should be killed. No one. If anything, they were going to this guy like, what are you, stupid? Why would you make a threat on the president? That's the dumbest thing in the world. I live in this society, and I'm aligning with the society. I'm learning for myself because, again, it reflects my overall values. And when I think about Charlie Kirk, that's a brave man. Look at me. I ran away from it. I saw holes in the system in the United States. I tripped into a society that aligned with my values, and I ended up sticking around. That dude sought to make changes from the inside. And I have yet to find one soundbite that everybody's citing about his evil and racism and fascism and all of this stuff. I haven't found one of those little snippets about empathy that's become like a weaponized word. He wasn't empathetic. That doesn't have more context. In fact, that one he said, I don't like empathy because it dehumanizes people. I like sympathy because now you have to get connected to people. Like, that's the most amazing quote in the world. And there's a percentage of people using that as some evidence of his evil?
Well, he questioned the Civil Rights Act.
No, he questioned the application of it, not the intent. He said that very clearly. Like, I have not been down a Charlie Kirk rabbit hole more than after I saw the allegations against him. Told you I'm going to be talking to you as if I'm just having this conversation. Some of you might be sitting there saying,
Oh, so you're a Charlie Kirk fan. That's what you're trying to say, Jamie.
Yeah, I am. I'm a fan of anybody that goes out and stands for what they believe in. I'm also a fan of Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian on the Young Turks. I'm a fan of Bill Maher. I love his take on everything. That guy is just logical, in my opinion. I'm a fan of some of what Ben Shapiro talks about, not all of it. There's policies that Trump's put in place that make a ton of sense to me. There's other shit he says that I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Are you broken? Like, what is wrong with you? I think this argument that,
Oh, but you live in a politically corrupt country in the Dominican Republic.
is like, the last 6 presidents like tripled or quadrupled their net worth. Look at freaking Nancy Pelosi. Tell me there's not insider trading and corruption there. US politicians get rich off the back of the populace, just like they do here. So I don't know. I'm struggling to get alignment around this idea that somehow I'm in a society that's completely broken. It's got its issues. Oh my God, does it have its issues? Up and down the board, politically, economically, infrastructure-wise, electricity, it's got its issues. And I am blessed to live in an area and to be able to afford to live in an area that I don't have to worry about many of those things. Look, I stayed in the Dominican Republic, as did my wife and my children, because it aligns with who we are, with our values. The US scares me, point blank. I went to New York City recently and hosted a get-together at a bar called Radagast in Brooklyn. 100 people showed up, I'm told. People that counted up, some said 40, 50, other people said 100. I'm going the Trump route. It was hundreds and hundreds. Let's say 100 people showed up. A lot of people, either way. And if you were there, you may have noticed this, maybe you didn't. I tried to not be as obvious about it, but I did admit it to a few people. Somebody bought me a beer. I didn't drink it. I don't love beer, but that's not why I didn't drink it. I wanted to have no degradation in my cognitive ability there. When I host get-togethers in the Dominican Republic, and I do it with some frequency, for my inner circle, I do it. I have a dad's night that we do once a month, meet a bunch of guys, and then I've hosted charity mixers here. Not once have I I haven't thought a bit about it on my way there or back. This will be fun. That's as much thought as there is. See how many people show up. Well, my ego would like more people than less people. That's about it. I wanted my cognition fully intact in Brooklyn because I don't know who was going to show up. In the United States, there are people right now watching this, and we'll see. You may reveal yourselves through your unsubscribe, maybe through your comments, that see me as a threat to this population. You see me as this colonizing the reemergence of Christopher Columbus. And if one guy in Washington Heights feels that strongly about it, and here I am saying, I'll be in this spot, you bet your ass I was aware. You bet your ass I was wondering. Who's coming at me a little faster than I'm comfortable with? Who's behind me? How do I keep my back to people that I just got to know to make sure? Again, I don't think you noticed this, but if you were sitting behind me at that long table, my back was to you after a while because I got to know you and I felt you weren't a threat. And I can keep my eyes open on where people were coming from. You may think that that's paranoid, and that's okay. I got 2 young boys. I got a wife. They all depend on me. I got a life to live. I've got value to create. I've got love in my heart. And I'm afraid, as a guy that has some level of niche fame, that somebody thinks, like Charlie Kirk, that I'm offensive enough to be a danger. Look, here's what I would say. I love all of you. I love all people. I really do. At the same time, this might be a time where some of you feel like you need to part this community that I'm a part of. And I'll try to define who that is. If you believe that my existence here is offensive, please unsubscribe. If you believe Charlie Kirk's murder in any way, shape, or form was justified, if you believe he was so hateful that his life was not worth living, and that some other human being could decide on his own that this human being had to no longer exist, if any of that is in your heart, I'm not your guy. I'll send my love, but I'm not your guy. If, however, you disagree with the points I make aggressively, you think I'm wrong, but the thought of me being harmed for my thoughts is like, well, that's just, come on. That means you have love in your heart for another human being. And I want you as part of this community. All the way up through those that just say,
Man, I like this guy. I like his vibe. I like his energy. I love what he does. I love how he speaks about my beautiful homeland.
which I take as such a responsibility to all of you that take the time to watch and patronize the content I put out. My community, I really do appreciate you. I want you around. I want you to share this with people. I want people to see the beauty that exists in Dominican Republic. I want them to know this message, but I also need to level set with all of you. This is who I am. If you've taken the leap to identify me as anything other than what I've just said, if I have to be a trumper to you or whatever it might be, if you just knew that I was aligned with the wrong side, I'm not your guy. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a proud content creator, and I love building communities. Communities where I allow myself to be in service to all of those that are part of it. I love debate. I love disagreement. I don't want to be agreed with all the time. Quite the contrary, it's boring. I learn so much from your disagreements. But those people who come at me as being something that they perceive, some sort of threat, if I'm offensive to you, I don't want you in my community. If you're wondering about the last video I did on Charlie Kirk, it's right here. You can watch that. Sending love to all of you. I hope it's clear as to why I live in this beautiful country. I'll see you guys in the next one.